Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Happy March and happy almost spring, and most importantly, happy middle grade March. So if those words coming out of my mouth made you go, wait, what? Middle Grade March is a yearly readathon hosted primarily on Instagram. I will link the official Instagram account as well as the accounts of the three co-hosts so you can check them out. But I've been participating in Middle Grade March for a long time. 2017? 2018? I'd have to go back and look to see when Middle Grade March first launched, but I've been here for the long haul. I love it. I absolutely adore middle grade, and while I have definitely stopped reading it in the quantity that I used to, I dearly love having an excuse to unabashedly dive back in to this age category every year. So there are 5 prompts for the official readathon on the Instagram page, and I don't think this will be a surprise to anyone. I don't really do the prompts because I'm not that type of reader, but I thought it might be fun to offer up some recommendations for books that fit the prompts for this year. So I have about 3 recommendations for each of the prompts, plus some honorable mentions that don't really fit into the categories, but are books that I think are like highly underread and underrated and would love for more people to read. These are largely books that I feel, in my personal opinion, can cross age categories. For the most part, I feel like the books I have work well for their intended audience and also work well for adult readers. So without any other further ado, let's jump on in. So the first prompt is to read a book by an author with 3 names. My first recommendation is going to be Jewel Parker Rhodes. Specifically Ghost Boys, like if you're gonna pick one, that is the one I recommend, but I think Jewel Parker Rhodes does such a great job of writing middle grade books that tackle really heavy, hard topics and doing it in a way that is really age appropriate but doesn't bog down the story, and writing characters that are really quick for you to fall in love with, for you to feel connected to, for you to be emotionally invested in. And I think if you're looking for a book that is going to hurt, but then is also going to give you some hope and feel like everything is going to be okay, she is definitely an author that I recommend. And also her covers are stunning. I really do recommend her if you want to come at current events in a kind of sideways manner, or if you are looking for recommendations for a kid and you have a kid who's really into historical events, who likes the I Survive books and wants to maybe step away from that series but still have elements of kids confronting real life circumstances with a little bit of like a speculative component, highly recommend. I'm cheating a little bit on this next one. How do we feel about a middle initial? Does that count as a third name? I'm gonna recommend The Mistula Saga by David A. Robertson, and this series is largely comped as a indigenous Narnia story. We're following 2 kids who are in a foster home and have so much trauma and are really struggling in this new house with this new family, and find a magic portal in the attic into this other land. And it's a long series. I believe book 5 came out at the end of 2024. But I think this series is so delightful. It's so magical. The characters feel so grounded, even though many of them are magical creatures. There's a lot of talking animals. There is some whimsy, but it is very much like rooted in real life things that Native kids, especially Native kids in the foster system, experience in their lives. And I would offer this as an alternative or in addition to Narnia, kind of like how with the Little House on the Prairie books, like I recommend The Birchbark House by Louise Erdrich as an alternative or as an addition to get another voice into the perspective. So yeah, I highly recommend the series. I think it's a lot of fun and they're real quick reads. Audiobooks are excellent as well. And then my final recommendation for this prompt is Karina Jan Glasser, and I'm sure this name is not new. Obviously the Vanderbeeker series is very popular and is now complete at 6 books, and I always recommend the Vanderbeeker series for kids or grown-ups who are looking for a family story that sometimes is very chaotic but is also very wholesome and very hopeful and just utterly delightful from start to finish. Even though I love Vanderbeekers, the one I think you should read is her most recent release, which takes place at a house in New York City for families who are homeless or have lost their homes and have children. And we're following two kids. One has lived in this house for a long time, and the other, she and her mom and her mom, I think it's her mom and her sister. You meet them on the day that they're moving into this house. And this was a real system that existed in New York City to give families somewhere safe to go if they had lost their home. And I thought this was beautiful. As always, her writing is always so good, but I really, really liked this one a lot. And I feel like this doesn't get nearly as much love as the Vanderbeeker books do. Understandably so. It's heavier content, but no less delightful and heartwarming, and I just absolutely adore it. The second prompt is to read a book with flowers on the cover. I only have two for this one. I haven't read, apparently, very many books with flowers on the covers. I guess it's just not something I gravitate towards. So my first recommendation is going to be The Lost Library. This is a book with multi-POVs. We're following a boy who is in 5th grade and is going to be going into middle school in the fall. And we're also following an orange cat who lives in this museum. And there's a little bit of a mystery. I don't want to say too much because I feel like it gives it away. But my family and I, we listened to this during a car trip, and everybody was absolutely riveted. All three of my kids, my husband, like we were all super invested in this story. It's really quick, but it's really sweet. It's got a super surprising twist at the end that we did not see coming, and the whole car was flabbergasted by the twist. It was so good. This is also one that is a little bit sad, but also very hopeful, and having the cat's POV just like made our day. It was so fun. And then the other one I recommend with flowers on the cover is The Extremely Inconvenient Adventures of Bronte Meddleston by Jacqueline Moriarty. This is book one in the Kingdoms, and I always forget what it's called. Okay, none of the books have the series title, but this is the first book in a series. And in this one, we meet Bronte, who has discovered that her parents have gone missing and sets out on an expedition across her kingdom to find them. This is a very ridiculous book, like top tier whimsy and silliness, but silliness with a purpose. This is not a book for readers who want everything to make sense, but this is definitely a book for readers who like a little chaos thrown in the mix. I really love Jacqueline Moriarty's writing. I've read almost every book in the series, and they're all very different, almost can be read as standalones, but so whimsical and creative, and I just think all the personalities are so fun. And they're definitely, even though they can be read as standalones, they're definitely connected. I have had to go back to try to figure out who the kids are sometimes, because we do go and visit different kids. So they're kids who are either secondary or very minor characters in this and then get their own book later down the road. And I just think Jacqueline Moriarty's writing is so fun. She's so imaginative. This world is so creative. And I think this title does not get enough love because it is ridiculously long. I recognize that. But I utterly adore Bronte and this series as a whole. And are there flowers? I just realized maybe there's not flowers. Oh dear. There's oranges. You know what? It's fine. It's fine. Oranges would have been flowers before they would have started as blossoms. So we're just gonna count it as flowers. It's a big fat fail on my part. Okay, next prompt is a book that includes travel, and I took travel very generously with these books. First off, we have Grounded for All Eternity by Darcy Marks. This is about Mal, who is a demon and lives in hell. And Mal and his friends are bored one night during Halloween. And of course, on Halloween, the veil between hell and the mortal world is very, very thin. And due to boredom and wanting to prove to their parents that they're more capable than they think they are, Mal and his friends decide to slip through the veil to the mortal world, and unfortunately they accidentally bring an escaped soul into the mortal world with them, and that escaped soul begins to cause havoc, and Mal and his friends have to try to find the escaped soul and protect the mortal world, and then also try to get back to their own dimension, all before the end of Halloween. This book is really fun. It's really different. I liked Mal so much, and the way like Mal is a demon, but the demons also are going through things that preteen humans are going through as well. This was really unexpected, utterly delightful. I picked it up entirely on a whim, and I'm so glad I did. This is also a book that my 9-year-old continues to come back to on a pretty regular basis, so definitely, I need to stop saying I recommend it, because obviously I recommend it because it's in this video. And the traveling obviously is we're going to other dimensions. The next travel book I have, we are going into space, and that is A Rover Story by Jasmine Warga. Whew, this book. Okay, so our main character in this is Resilience, and Resilience is a Mars rover. And this book is told in a series of letters and then narrative. So we're reading letters written by a girl named Sophia, and she's writing to Resilience, Res, because her mom is one of the engineers that is building Res at NASA, or in California, whatever that place is where they build the rovers. And then we're getting Res's perspective as it is being built and as its awareness is coming online. And eventually Res is sent to Mars, which is the mission that Resilience was built for. This book, first of all, it's such a fast read because the chapters are short and the letters from Sophia are short, and they are so beautifully woven together. I cried so hard while reading this book, but granted, I am a sucker for a robot story, but I just fell utterly in love with Resilience and was so invested in its story and the way it viewed the world and the way it viewed its mission and its relationship with the other robots. Just, oh my goodness, it is so good. Such a sweet story, but will utterly break your heart. So definitely read with tissues nearby. And then the final book for the travel prompt I have is The Rise and Fall of Mount Majestic. This is by Jennifer Trafton, and the art is by Brett Hellquist. I love this book. This is about Persimmon Smudge, who lives on the island in the middle of everything, and Persimmon is bored. Life on her island is boring. But then one day she hears a secret, and it catapults her into this adventure to try to solve this mystery about Mount Majestic, which is a hill on her island. And this is another book that is similar to the Extremely Inconvenient Adventures of Bronte Metalstone, where there is a lot of whimsy, there is a high sense of the ridiculousness, but not at the price of plot or character development or world building. And I really love that combination across the board, but especially in middle grade. Okay, the fourth prompt is to read a book that is part of a series. So obviously this is probably the easiest prompt because, I mean, pick a series, any series. I'm gonna give you just 3 series that I think should be read more by people. The first one is Frostheart. This is, I could compare this to How to Train Your Dragon, not in tone of the books anyways, because the books have a very different tone than the movies. Well, very different everything than the movies. But Frostheart is like a Norwegian fantasy inspired middle grade series, and it's following a boy who is on a quest, and it's got great world building, great adventure. Side characters are incredible, and I feel like this does not get nearly the love that it should. And definitely recommend it for kids or adults who really love the How to Train Your Dragon movies and maybe want something in a similar vein, though obviously not as dragon heavy. I haven't talked about this series in a while, okay? So I'm allowed because it's been a minute. But it's a Sinister Summer series by Kirsten White. It starts with Wretched Water Park, and this is a gothic series I kind of like a series of unfortunate events, though I would say less depressing, about 3 siblings who wake up on the first day of summer vacation to discover their parents are missing, and throughout the series are trying to discover where their parents have gone and uncover secrets that their parents have left behind. These are fun because they have a real gothic leaning, but they're not scary. There may be suspenseful parts, but they're revealed pretty quickly. So for like more sensitive readers or readers who don't want to read middle grade horror but kind of want it to be a little bit more serious, this is a good pick. Though I would say Kirsten White's sense of humor in this one comes through loud and clear, and there are a lot of like laugh out loud moments in this series. I also like how there's just a little bit of speculative fiction sprinkled in, but done in a way where you can really debate back and forth whether or not those elements are speculative or whether it's real world. It has a real simple real world explanation, and I really like that component. I think that's fun. And then the last series I'm going to recommend is Finding Serendipity by Angelica Banks. This was a read aloud that we did about 4 years ago. No, we read this in 2020. So yeah, it was 5 years ago. Whoa. Okay. But this is about Tuesday McGillicuddy, and Tuesday's mother is a really famous author, and one day she disappears into the world of her book, and Tuesday and her dog Baxter have to go in after her. So this is another one with high adventure, a really fun world that's been built, and again, the side characters are really great. It's got a great quest, and the whole trilogy itself is really fun and creative and imaginative and works really well as a read aloud. We had a lot of fun reading this, and I was just as invested in what was going to happen to Tuesday as my kids were. This was supposed to be a quick video, and here I am yapping. All right, the last prompt is a book published in the 1900s. That's fine. That doesn't hurt me at all. All right, I'm gonna start with one that was my favorite when I was this age, but I cannot speak to I can't speak to how it holds up because I have not reread it recently. But that is Liddy by Catherine Patterson. This book, if I remember correctly, takes place in Appalachia, and Liddy is born into a very poor family, and she ends up having to leave her family and move to the city to go to work in a factory to support her family. And so it's a real honest look at what factory life was like for everyone, but specifically for young girls at the time, and the hardships that they went through, how dangerous it was to work in a factory. And I remember being utterly swept away by Liddy and everything she went through. I was not a historical fiction reader as a kid. I was a hard fantasy girl all the way through. Some things don't change, but Liddy was the exception. I was so captivated by her story. So again, don't hold me to whether or not there are any problematic elements in this book, but I think if you like historical fiction, you could really love Liddy. Obviously, the Alana books were written in the 1900s. I don't need to recommend the Alana books. I feel like Tamora Pierce is getting a lot of love, especially recently, so as always, there are the Alana books. My personal favorite that gets a little less love is Dealing with Dragons by Patricia C. Reedy. This is also the first book in a series, and this is about Princess Cimarine, who is the youngest of, oh gosh, is it 7? 6? She's got a lot of older sisters, and all of her sisters have blonde hair and blue eyes and are petite and delicate and the perfect model princess. But then there's Cimarine, who's tall and gangly and has stick straight black hair and wants to do everything that is not princess approved. She wants to learn how to cook. Princesses don't do that. She wants to learn how to fight. Princesses don't do that. And then one day her mom is like, hey, it's time for you to get married. It's Cimarine. It's like, whoa, no thank you, ma'am. And so for once in her life, Cimarine decides to do what is acceptable for a princess to do, and she gets herself kidnapped by a dragon so that she does not have to get married. And then it's a very domestic type of book because we're watching Cimarine live with this dragon Kazul and become part of the dragon community and try to fend off the princes who keep trying to come and rescue rescue her. There's also evil wizards who are plotting against the dragons. It's such a good time. I love this series so much. This was the series that like really hooked me as a reader as a child, and I have read this multiple times as a grown up. It holds up so well and is such a fun introduction to a really fun series. That is the last book for the 5 prompts, and I have 3 honorable mentions that I want to talk to you about that I would recommend even though they don't really fit into any of the prompts. The first is Caleb and Kit by Beth Rabel. This is about Caleb, who has cystic fibrosis, and he and his family have just moved to a new house, and Caleb is bored and lonely and tired of not being able to do things because of his CF diagnosis, and he meets Kit, who is a girl that lives, I don't think next to him, but close to him if I remember correctly, and it is about their friendship. This was really educational for me. I didn't know a lot about CF or what it was like to live with CF when I read it, and I learned a lot about what it's like to have that diagnosis, and there's a really interesting mystery about Kit and who she is and what is going on in her life and what her family life is like, and just watching Caleb grow and mature and learn. There's a heaviness to this book, and I don't want to give away what the mystery is or what the twist is, so I'm trying to be vague while also telling you about this book. But I thought this was very lovely, beautifully written, and I have a couple of friends with CF who also recommend this book, so the CF stuff checks out. All right, my second honorable mention is Anna on the Edge by A.J. Sass. This is realistic fiction about Anna, who is a figure skater, but like a competitive figure skater. Anna is homeschooled and like that level, like homeschool, at the rink all hours of the day. At home, it's just Anna and their mom, and this book is really about Anna's discovery that they are non-binary, and what it all kicks off when, as they're preparing for the next competition season, and Anna is given this new routine, and the choreographer picks a costume and picks a music and picks a style that sits so wrong in Anna's body, and Anna knows it doesn't fit right and doesn't know why. And then one day, as they are helping out at a learn how to skate class, they meet a boy who mistakes Anna for a boy, and that mistake locks something in place for Anna and starts them on the journey there. For every kid who grew up being obsessed with figure skating and also wondering if the body that they're born into and what the rest of the world sees isn't maybe who they are on the inside. It's like highly recommend, but also like read with tissues as well, because there's some stuff with Anna's mom in this book that just broke me as a person. And then my final honorable mention is A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontornfat, and this is a Thai-inspired fantasy retelling of Les Mis, and do you need more than that? And we're following Pong, who was born in this prison and has been raised in this prison. He's never left, and he longs for escape and for adventure, and one night he manages to escape the prison, and he quickly realizes that the outside world is just as cruel and unfair as living in the prison was. And then our other point of view is Nok, who is the prison warden's daughter, and she sees Pong escape and then starts her own journey of trying to catch him to bring him back to the prison. It's so good. That's just full stop. It's so good. This is I have a lot of favorite middle grade. I've highly recommended a lot of things. I get it. But this, if you take one recommendation for middle grade March from this stack, read this book. Read this book. So anyways, that is the end of this video, and I hope that you found something in this that sounds exciting to you, that you want to read. I would love to know if you're participating in middle grade March and what you're planning to read this month. I have not set my TBR yet. It's probably going to be a super heavy mood read, but I'm really excited. I might reread A Wish in the Dark because now that I've talked about it, I really want to read it again. If you want to leave an emoji to let me know that you made it to the end of the video, let's leave a flower for my failure to understand the prompt and to look at a cover correctly. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Bye!